Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Vanessa and I'm an author from Toronto, Canada, and I publish under the pen name Ahan Sage. If you are new here, then you should know that I like to share tips on writing after having published 20 books to date and counting. I have worked both as an indie author, as a trad author, and also as a ghostwriter. And so I developed quite a few tricks up my sleeves that I'd love to share here. So if that sounds like something that you want to see more of, then make sure that you are subscribed and that you hit the bell notification so you don't miss any of the upcoming videos. If you are subscribed, however, welcome back and thank you for being part of this community. I am so excited to talk to you every week. And today, and this video that we have for this week is extra exciting again because it is an answer to something that you guys have shown interest in. So every week when I have a video, I asked if you want to see another idea or a post or any kind of topic that you want to hear about when it comes to either writing or illustrating or cover art or any of the things, book coaching, or any of the things that I do for a living. And I have mentioned doing a video on character voice and to see if anybody would enjoy this. I also put this up on my stories on Instagram, and there was quite a few people that said that they wanted to know more about character voice. More importantly, what it is and how to develop it in your story. So that is what we're talking about today, is character voice. Now, character voice is very, very exciting. When I start writing, developing a character voice is probably one of the most important parts. The most important part for me when I begin a book or a short story or a novella or whatever it might be is the hook and the first page, which is a video that we did yesterday, last week, sorry, not yesterday. So if you haven't seen that video yet, then make sure that you go ahead and watch it, and I will link it somewhere in the cards for you. It'll be like up there somewhere. So a hook and the first page are kind of the thing that gets your reader super invested in your book immediately or pretty immediately. The next thing that your reader will always want more of is your character. This is your main character. It doesn't have to be your main character. It could be other characters along the way as well. But your main character is the reason that your reader is going to keep coming back to your book. And if it's a series, it's the reason they're going to want to read more of them. You want to give them a character that they can root for, a character that they can either relate to, a character that they can dislike. There are all different types of ways to do this. But the most important part of all of this is your character's voice. That is the part that is going to not only resonate with your reader, but it's going to set your character apart. It's going to give them a personality of sorts. And it's also going to make them three-dimensional. A lot of times, if you read a book and you can't quite relate to the character, more often than not, it's because the voice is wrong or the voice is non-existent. Now, one of the things that I'm going to say before I start talking about tips for developing good character voice is make sure that when you are writing, that your voice as an author and your character's voice are two very separate things. They're not to be confused. You are basically this omniscient person, this omniscient being that is creating the book, especially if you are not writing in first person POV. Your character voice, however, that's their own thing. Think of them as a real life person. Now, you and another real life person don't have the same voice, and so you kind of have to think of it the same way. So what is a character's voice? So your character's voice, essentially in layman's terms, is how your character expresses themselves, be it whether physically, internally, through speech, through mannerisms, just who they are as a person and how that comes about to the world. That could include inner dialogue as well, but for the most part, your character's voice will be something that other people and other characters can relate to. And also, if you are doing in a monologue, it's the way that they are speaking to themselves and inside their heads. So what should you look for when you are trying to develop character voice? So the first thing, and probably the most important thing, is the personality and the tone. So you got to think of your character's personality. I have tips and I have some sheets that you can download if you're part of the resource library and the newsletter for this channel. It's completely free. There's a whole bunch of templates on there that you can use, and one of them is for developing your characters. It really helps get to know your characters, get to know their personality. Are they quirky? Are they funny? Are they kind of solemn? Do they like to read? Do they enjoy being in big crowds of people? What's their favorite food? All of these things helps you develop a well-rounded and a 3D character that feels real. And that's what you want. So that's their personality. And also their tone. Their tone is essentially how they behave. So are they aggressive? Are they very, very shy? Are they reserved? Are they adventurous? This is kind of the tone of your character. Once you've filled out almost like a get to know your character questionnaire, it's going to be a lot easier for you to know who they are and to actually narrow down their personality and their tone. And when you've done that, the next thing you kind of want to look at, and these are big picture things. So personality and tone, big picture thing. The next big picture thing you want to look at when developing your character's voice or trying to figure out who they are so you know what they sound like are their goals and motivations. A character's goals and motivations will have a lot to do with their voice, and it will actually steer their voice in one direction or another. Let's say you have a character that is a big-time warrior of sorts. So their goal might be to geographically take over some kind of land. I mean, we're just making up stories here, but their goal could be geographically taking over the land of an adjoining kingdom. That is their goal. Their motivations are to help their own people. And so their voice might be battle warrior style. They might be loud. They might be boisterous. They will be very determined in how they speak. As opposed to a character that just wants to, find the love of their life, for example, and you're writing a romance. If they are very demure and all they want is just to be loved, it could be because they're not getting that love right now in their current situation. And so their goals are to find another person that relates to them. Their voice is going to be very, very different from this big warrior type character that we just talked about. They might be more collected, more calm. They might be shy. Their motivations might be that they want to discover who they are and to feel like they fit in, which would mean that they might not fit in at the moment anywhere. And so that shyness, not the self-assuredness that the warrior might have, but having quite the opposite. They might not be assured of themselves at all. They might not think that they deserve love, and so on and so forth. So as you slowly develop these goals and these motivations for your characters, you start to understand more and more about what they want out of life, and that will definitely affect how they voice themselves. Tics and reflexes. So now we're kind of starting to go down to the more smaller things. So we're not thinking big picture anymore. Tics and reflexes, we all have it. When I speak, I use the word so a lot. When I write, I use the word just a lot. I smack my lips. I'm sure you've noticed on these videos. These are all my tics, right? So when people are talking to me, they might notice it. I have a friend whose automatic tic is just to always do this to his hair. It's just what he does. He's always had it. That is part of his character voice. Reflexes. If you know a person that cannot take criticism, the reflex could also always be to argue when somebody pays them like a negative comment, right? So these are all things that will play into how your character reacts to things, how they interact with people. It will also play in how they speak to themselves. So you hear that. When I talk to myself in my head, I also use the word so a lot. And you want to think about that, because when your character has these inner dialogue moments and these inner thought moments, or even if you're writing first person POV and they're just noting what's around them, these tics and reflexes will become part of that inner conversation that they're having with themselves and with the world around them. And now we're getting to the fun part and the very obvious part. This is what people think about when they think character voice, and that's the dialogue. You want to nail the dialogue. So once you know your character's personality, once you know their goals and motivations, once you know some of their tics that they have, some of the reflexes that they have, it's time to nail that dialogue. That means that practice how they speak to other people. So as I mentioned before, my favorite thing to start with when I started to write a book is the hook and that first page. And I usually just write that after I've kind of big time plotted, like that big picture plot. I will write the hook and the first page, and then I'll probably go in and do a more detailed plot later. But when I start writing, I never just start at that first chapter. What I always start is the first scene where there is dialogue with my main character. Because for me, that sets the tone for the rest of the book and how they're going to behave. And it helps me really nail their voice, nail that dialogue. So I definitely recommend you do that. Figure out which scene of yours, it could be a made up scene that you don't use, or it could be a made up scene that you do end up using that you didn't think you would. But find a part in your book that would have dialogue where your main character is heavy on dialogue, and write that part. And as you write it, perfect it. Make it so that without any dialogue tags, so without using things like she said, or he said, or she grinned, or he grinned, or she wins, he wins, without using any of that. Don't describe anything. Try to nail their voice specifically just in how they are speaking. Try to give them different dialects, things that they might say. So nail that dialogue and you understand your character's voice a lot better. And in order to nail that dialogue, there's a whole bunch of other stuff that we're going to talk about now. So we've gone big picture, middle picture, dialogue, and now we're going to kind of spread out and talk about how you can actually nail that dialogue. Catchphrases. These are big things. Does your character have a catchphrase? If they don't, consider giving them one. It could be the way that they don't use curse words, but they say something else. I am writing right now a cozy mystery, a paranormal cozy mystery. The main character is a witch. And she owns a coffee shop. She's obsessed with coffee. So she doesn't swear. Instead of swearing, she says things like holy coffee bean or coffee goddess or whatever it is. So she uses the term coffee instead of different words all of the time. Her catchphrases. So try to think of catchphrases you can give your character in order to have that voice come on stronger. And that way, if people hear that catchphrase or they see it written down, they'll know right away who is speaking. And that goes for other secondary characters as well, not just your main character. You also want to think about the rhythm and the pacing of speech. When I get excited, I tend to talk really, really fast, right? My rhythm goes kind of like up and down, like a bunny hopping. I know people, like my husband, for example, who is a very calm person. And so when he speaks, he doesn't talk the same as me. He talks very calmly. His words stretch out. His stories are just like a little bit longer in length. And it's all very, the tone of the voice and the pacing of the speech is very different. So we are two very different people. We have different voices. Think about the rhythm and the pacing of your speech. You almost want to think about it as a song. If your character was talking, whether internally or externally, how would that song sound? Just think of the rhythm, think of the beats. Would they be super fast-paced like me? Would they be slower? Would they be somewhere in between? And you want to give them that pacing and that rhythm and that speech every single time, because that's going to become what their voice is. You also want to think about body language. So that's another one. How are they when they are speaking? Are they very relaxed? Do they cross their arms? Are they a little bit shaky? Let's see. Do they stutter a lot if they're nervous? Do they like to touch the back of their hand or their neck? Do they rearrange their hair? Do they try to chew on their nails? These are all parts of character voice that you can add to it. So this is where the dialogue tags come in. So when you have your dialogue, when I said nail the dialogue, part of tics and reflexes is also body language. So in your dialogue tags, or even when your character is moving around in the world, they might do these different things that is very specific to them. You might have a character that is very clumsy, and so their body language will be tripping over themselves pretty much constantly, right? So things like that. Think about what body language is so specific to your character that it helps develop their voice as a person in your book. And then the big thing is basically your character's background. Your character's background will have a lot to do with their voice and who they are, because it will be the thing that shapes them to who they are today, who they are in your story. Their age. Young people speak very differently from older people. I know this because I can no longer understand half of the things that teenagers are saying these days. As I'm sure my parents and my grandparents don't understand anything that I say. And so age has a huge difference, and there's a big gap between the way that people speak. Education. So levels of education also makes a difference in how your character will speak and how they will think, what their voice is. Their profession. Different professions affect how we communicate with both ourselves and with the world and with others. And geography. So where we are from will create different dialects, different speech patterns, different terms to use, all of that. This is all part of your character development. So when you go back to that goals and motivations and personality and all the tics and reflexes, try to think about age, education, profession, and geography as well as you're developing your character. Just make little notes for yourself of who they are, where they're from, how old they are, what their education level is, and what they do for a living, because it will help you think about how they might interact with the outside world. And then the most important tip of everything is avoid stereotyping. The last thing that your reader wants is a stereotype, a caricature of a character. So avoid stereotypes just for your sake. It's going to help you with not having so many edits and rewrites later, and your character will come across as more genuine. In fact, don't just avoid stereotypes, but when you can, try to break them. So go against the stereotypes out there, because it will help create a more well-rounded individual. And when your character starts to feel like an actual individual, that's when you've done your job. That's when you've done your job with their voice, because your reader will now see them as a person and not just something that you have created on a page by typing stuff words away. So hopefully that helped explain character voice to you and how you can go about creating a character voice that actually stands out and makes it memorable for your readers. If you have any other videos that you want me to make, any ideas, make sure that you note them below and I'll be happy to add them to the list of things to do. But otherwise, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for watching till the end. If you have watched till the end, if you are subscribed, and if you're also subscribed to the newsletter, then you are super duper amazing. And I love having you here. Stay tuned for another video next week and stay magical as always. And I will see you soon. Bye.